I used to think legends were just stories, tales told to keep kids from wandering too far or staying out too late. But that was before I took the job in Black Hollow. I was hired by a real estate investor to evaluate an old property deep in the Appalachian woods, a stretch of land barely marked on any map, save for a single dirt road that wound through the trees like a scar. At the end of it stood an abandoned cabin, the last structure remaining in what had once been a small settlement, a town that no longer existed on paper or in memory. The road was barely passable. My SUV shuddered over rocks and tree roots, the forest growing tighter with every mile. No bird song, no wind, just the hum of the engine and the heavy press of silence. When I reached the cabin, the air felt wrong, like the woods had exhaled and was holding its breath. The structure itself was old but not crumbling, too intact for how long it must have been left to rot. The windows were boarded, but the boards weren't weathered. The door creaked open before I touched it, like it had been waiting for me. Inside, the air was stale, but there was no dust, no cobwebs, just the faint smell of pine and something metallic, blood or rust. The main room was sparse, a stone fireplace, an old wooden chair, and a thick journal sitting open on a crooked table. The pages were filled with cramped handwriting, dark ink scratched in frantic lines. At first it was just records, weather notes, trapping logs, mentions of visitors, but as the entries continued, they shifted, became darker. They come at night now, one line read, whispers in the trees. Sometimes I see them through the cracks in the walls. I turned the page. Don't let them hear your name. Chills spidered across my skin. I looked around the cabin again. I hadn't closed the door behind me, but it was shut now. The light through the window slats had dimmed, though it wasn't yet evening. Something moved outside. I stayed still, barely breathing. A soft crunch of leaves, then another, slow, deliberate steps. I moved to the window and peered through a narrow gap in the boards. Nothing. Then a face. For a split second, pale and expressionless, it stared back at me from inches away, eyes hollow and black like polished obsidian. It was gone just as fast, leaving only the echo of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I stumbled back, heart racing, knocking over the chair. The journal fell open to another page. If they know your name, they follow you home. I tried to leave. The door wouldn't budge. I pulled harder, shoved it with my shoulder. Nothing. It was like it had grown roots into the frame. Behind me, the cabin creaked, floorboards groaning under weight that wasn't mine. Another noise, breathing, low and ragged. I turned, and the shadows moved. They slithered along the walls, rippling like liquid, forming shapes that looked almost human, but wrong, too long, too thin. Smiling, the whisper came next. Not loud, not even clear, but close. So close it tickled the hairs on the back of my neck. It said my name. I didn't tell anyone my name out here, not even the man who hired me, but it whispered it, over and over, like a chant. I ran. I didn't care about the door anymore. I smashed through the window, glass slicing my arms, and fell into the cold dirt outside. The forest was alive with sound now, but not natural. It was a chorus of voices, rising and falling like breath, my name echoing between the trees. I didn't stop running. I made it to the car, fumbled with the keys, heart hammering so loud it felt like it would burst. When the engine started, I almost cried. I sped down the path, the trees clawing at the sides of the vehicle, shadows racing alongside me just out of reach. When I finally made it back to town, it was like stepping out of a nightmare. Bright lights, cars, people, but the relief was short-lived, because the whisper didn't stop. At first I thought it was stress, residual fear, but that night, lying in bed, I heard it again, soft, just outside the window, my name, always my name. I moved apartments, then cities, change jobs. I told myself it would fade, that whatever I saw was a trick of the mind, a hallucination from some old gas leak in the cabin. But I know better now. Last week I came home to find muddy footprints in my living room, bare, long-toed, streaked with ash. The locks were untouched, no sign of a break-in. Last night, the journal appeared on my nightstand, the same one from the cabin, open to a new page, a fresh line written in that same tight, frantic hand. They don't want the cabin anymore, they want you. And now, every time I close my eyes, I see that face in the window. I hear the chanting grow louder. I feel the cold fingers brushing against my skin, even though I sleep with all the lights on. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because tonight, I heard your name, whispered, softly, just outside your door. Story 2. They say there's a trail somewhere in the woods behind the old mining town of El Ridge, a trail that doesn't appear on any map, and only shows itself when the forest wants it to. Most people pass through the area without ever noticing. Just another cluster of trees off the highway, tucked between hills and thick pine. But once in a while, someone finds it, or rather, it finds them. I was one of those people. It started when I was driving back from a weekend trip, late at night, no traffic, just me, and the road, and the soft drone of a true crime podcast playing low on the speakers. I'd taken this route before, dozens of times, but that night, something felt off, like the air had thickened. The trees on either side of the road leaned in, shadows melting together into a solid black wall. My headlights caught a glint, a sign half buried in brush. I don't know why I stopped. I don't remember even thinking about it. I just pulled over, engine still running, and got out of the car. The sign was old, rusted, bent, half covered in moss, but I could just barely make out the words. Hollow's End, 2 miles. I should have gotten back in the car, but I didn't. I walked into the trees. The path was narrow, like it had been carved by animals instead of people. Twigs snapped underfoot, and the deeper I went, the quieter the world became. No crickets, no wind, just the steady crunch of my boots and the faint sense of being watched. The path twisted unnaturally, circling trees that had grown in impossible patterns. Trunks spiraled together, roots rising like ribs from the ground. The trees looked burned in places, bark peeling back in long strips, revealing a black, almost oozing wood beneath. Then I saw it, the cabin, small, half collapsed, yet still standing. It didn't look abandoned. There were footprints in the dirt, fresh ones, leading up to the door, leading inside. I should have turned around, but I didn't. I stepped inside, and the air shifted, heavy, humid, smelling of wet stone and something rotten. The room was empty, at first, just shadows and old furniture, and the slow creak of the floor beneath me. Then I saw the mirror, tall, ornate, standing at the back of the cabin like it had been placed there with care. It didn't reflect the room behind me. It showed something else, a hallway, dimly lit by flickering bulbs strung along the ceiling. The walls were damp stone, stretching back into darkness, and in the distance, a shape, human, barely more than a silhouette, standing still, facing the mirror, facing me. I stepped closer. The figure didn't move. I raised my hand, slowly, and waved. It didn't wave back. Instead, it tilted its head. Suddenly, the hallway in the mirror flickered, as though the image was glitching. For a moment, I saw something else entirely. A room full of people, or what had once been people, faces twisted in agony, mouths open in silent screams, eyes black and oozing, staring directly at me. Then it was gone. The hallway was back. The figure was gone. I turned around, heart pounding, but I wasn't alone anymore. There was someone, something standing in the far corner of the room, a shape just darker than the shadows, tall, wrong. It whispered my name, not out loud, not in the air, in my head, over and over and over. I ran, out of the cabin, down the path. I didn't care where I was going, just away. But the trail was different now. The trees had moved. The path curved in impossible directions. No matter how far I ran, the cabin stayed behind me, always behind me. It took hours to find my way out. By the time I stumbled back to the road, the sun was rising. My car was gone, like it had never been there. I walked for miles before a truck picked me up. The driver didn't say much, but when I mentioned Hollow's End, his face went pale. "You don't talk about that place," he said. "You just don't." He dropped me off at the next town, and I never saw him again. But the story doesn't end there. The dream started soon after. The same hallway from the mirror. I walk it every night. The lights flicker. The air smells like mildew and blood. And every time the figure is closer. Sometimes I wake up with scratches on my arms, dirt on my feet. Once I woke up inside my closet, standing there, still asleep, the door wide open behind me. And now, the mirror has started appearing in places it shouldn't be. At the hotel I stayed in last month, in a department store window, once reflected in the black screen of my TV, even though there was nothing behind me. I've tried smashing them, covering them. It doesn't matter. The reflection is always the same. The hallway, and that figure, closer each time. I've tried to forget, to live a normal life. But something followed me out of those woods. Something old, hungry. Every mirror is a window now, and one day soon it's going to step through. Story 3. It started with a radio, a cheap beat-up thing I found at a flea market. The seller practically gave it away, said it still worked when it wanted to. I liked that, thought it added character. I took it home and set it up in my workshop, just a little shed behind the house where I do my woodworking. Nights were quiet out there, too quiet sometimes, so I figured a little background noise wouldn't hurt. The first time I turned it on, all I got was static. No matter how I tuned the dial, it was nothing but white noise. I left it running anyway, just for ambience. That's when I heard the voice, faint, buried beneath the fuzz, like a whisper riding the current of static. At first I thought it was my imagination, but then it said my name, clearly, Elliot. I froze, turned off the radio, silence. I didn't touch it again for a week, but curiosity does things to a person, makes you doubt what you heard, makes you wonder. So one night, after a long day, I went back out there and turned it on again. Same static, same eerie quiet. I was about to turn it off when the voice came back. Only this time, it wasn't whispering, "Elliot, I see you." I checked the frequency, nothing listed, just dead air. But the voice kept talking, telling me things no one could know. About the fight I had with my brother 10 years ago. About the scar on my shoulder from a fall no one witnessed. About the woman I used to love, and what happened to her. It knew everything, and the more I listened, the more it began to change. It stopped calling itself a voice. It said it had a name, Gale. Said it lived between the frequencies, in the space where thoughts die and secrets rot. It said I invited it in. The moment I tuned the dial, I started unplugging the radio at night. Then I started locking it in the shed. Then I tried to throw it out. It came back, every time. Once I left it in a dumpster on the other side of town. Next morning, it was on my workbench, humming quietly. The dial turned to a station that didn't exist. I smashed it with a hammer. The static didn't stop. It moved, to my phone, to my TV, to the silence between notes on the piano. I hadn't played in years. "Elliot," it said, "you're tuned in now. You're one of us." That night, I dreamed of a place made entirely of sound, a world of shifting static and pulsing radio waves, voices crying out from every direction, some weeping, some laughing, some screaming endlessly. And in the center of it all, a tower, black metal twisting into the sky, antennas like bones, and at the top, a single eye made of rust and light. It looked at me, and I woke up to blood pouring from my ears. Doctors couldn't explain it, said maybe it was stress, maybe a ruptured vessel, but I knew the truth. Gale was getting stronger. I tried to move, sold the house, burned the shed, got rid of everything I owned. For a while it was quiet, until one night, in my new apartment, I turned on the kitchen faucet,
and heard the static. The water whispered, now it's everywhere. In the hum of the fridge, in the wind between buildings, in the spaces between seconds. Sometimes, I think I hear my own voice, screaming in reverse, like an echo from a version of me I left behind. There are others too. I met one, a man at a diner, mumbling to himself. I thought he was just another street crazy, until I caught a word he whispered, Gale. When I sat down across from him, he looked up with hollow eyes and said, you hear it too. He told me there are hundreds of us, maybe thousands, people who heard the static and never stopped listening. Some kill themselves trying to make it stop, others disappear. Some go mad and become transmitters themselves, repeating the words of Gale, broadcasting madness. He gave me a warning. There's a final frequency, he said. If you ever hear it, don't listen, don't follow it, don't let it inside. I asked what it sounded like. He just shook his head and said, you'll know. That was 3 days ago. Last night, I turned on my old clock radio, the one I kept hidden under the floorboards, just in case I needed to prove to myself. It was all in my head. It was on. I swear I never plugged it in. And from the speaker came a sound I've never heard before. A tone, low, vibrating, like a heartbeat filtered through metal and nightmares. Beneath it, I heard a whisper, final frequency found. It's been looping for hours now, and the thing is, I can't stop listening. I haven't eaten. I haven't slept. Every time I try to pull away, the sound calls me back. It's inside me now, in my bones, in my blood. I think I've been transmitting too. I don't even remember when I started talking. But if you're hearing this, if you're listening now, it's already too late. The signal found you, and Gale knows your name. Story 4. The Man in the Red Room. I don't usually believe in curses, or haunted houses, or any of that ghost hunter crap you see on TV. I like facts, numbers, tangible things, which is why I can't explain what happened to me, not in any way that makes sense. It started when I moved into an old Victorian home on the outskirts of town. It was a steal, the kind of price you don't question if you're smart. So I signed the papers, moved in the next week, and didn't ask why it had been empty for 13 years. The house was beautiful, tall windows, creaky floors, heavy wooden doors, with locks older than I was. The only thing out of place was a single room at the end of the upstairs hallway. The Red Room. That's not what anyone called it. No stories, no legends, but that's what it was. Deep crimson wallpaper, curtains like old blood. Even the carpet had a dark, faded maroon tone. It felt wrong, like it had been designed for a purpose nobody talked about. I decided not to use it, kept the door shut, told myself it was just a weird aesthetic choice from a previous owner. Still, the first night I slept in the house, I dreamt about that room. In the dream, I stood in the hallway, watching the door slowly open by itself. From inside, I saw a man standing in the corner, perfectly still, wearing a dark suit and a hat. His face was completely in shadow, even though the room was lit. He didn't move, but I couldn't stop looking at him. And when I woke up, the door to the Red Room was open. I was sure I had closed it. I remember hearing the latch click, but there it was, just like in the dream, wide open, the curtains swaying gently, even though no windows were cracked. That became a pattern. Every night, I dreamed of the man, and every morning, the door was open. Sometimes, the dream changed. Sometimes he was sitting in the old armchair that faced the fireplace, hands folded neatly in his lap. Sometimes he was standing over me, as I lay in bed, the ceiling stretching impossibly high above us, always silent, always watching. I told myself it was stress, maybe even sleepwalking, so I started locking the door. I even shoved a chair under the knob. Still, every morning open. One night, I decided to stay awake and see what was happening. I sat at the end of the hallway, facing the Red Room, holding a mug of coffee and trying to keep my eyes from drooping. At 3:13 a.m., I heard the door unlatch, click. No wind, no creaks, just that sharp sound. The handle turned slowly. The chair slid by itself. The door opened, and I saw him. Not in a dream, not in my imagination. I saw him, the man in the suit, standing in the middle of the room. still as a photograph, shadow where his face should be. And yet, I knew he was looking at me. I could feel the weight of his stare behind my eyes. I blinked, and he was gone. But I was wrong to think it was over. After that night, the man started appearing in reflections, in windows, in mirrors, in darkened TV screens, always standing just behind me, just out of reach. I'd turn, nothing, but the room would smell like burnt matches, or old flowers, or something else I couldn't name. It got worse. My phone started ringing at exactly 3:13 every night. Never a number I recognized, never a sound on the other end, except for breathing, slow, deep, deliberate. I smashed the phone. It didn't matter. The calls came through the landline I never installed, through the old radio in the attic, through the pipes in the wall. And then, one night, the dreams changed. I wasn't outside the room anymore. I was in it, sitting in the armchair, wearing the suit, wearing the hat, watching a younger version of myself sleep in the bed I'd brought into the master bedroom downstairs, watching and smiling. I woke up sweating, heart racing. I ran to the red room, but it wasn't there. I mean, the door was there, but when I opened it, it was just a blank wall. No room, no windows, no fireplace, just plaster, seamless and cold. I called the real estate company, demanded answers. They told me the house had never had a room at the end of the hall, said the floor plan ended with a linen closet. I checked old photos. They were right, but I remember that room. I remember the color of the carpet. I remember the way the light curved against the drapes. I remember the man, and now I see him everywhere. In crowds, in alleys, in dreams that feel like memories I haven't lived yet. I tried moving away. The house is gone now, condemned after a sudden fire. But the red room followed me. It appears behind doors that shouldn't exist. In hotels, in basements, in my mind. Sometimes, I wake up in places I don't remember going to, surrounded by red, sitting in that same armchair, wearing clothes I don't own, watching people I've never met, and always, the same whisper in my ear. It's your turn now. I think the room chooses someone. Maybe once every decade, maybe once every century, and once it does, you belong to it. So if you ever find yourself in a house with one too many doors, and you open one to find a room bathed in red, don't go in, don't sit down, don't look at the man, and above all, don't stay past 3:13, because the moment you do, you become part of the room, and someone else will wake up and find your face in their dreams. Story 5. I moved into the apartment because I needed to start over. It was cheap, in a quiet part of the city, and the landlord didn't ask many questions. That was exactly what I wanted. No small talk, no paperwork that looked too closely at my past. The building was old, the kind that had been modernized, just enough to pass inspection. Peeling paint in the hallway, humming lights that flickered now and then, and neighbors who never made eye contact. The kind of place where no one asked questions. The kind of place where people disappear and no one really notices. My unit was on the 3rd floor, apartment 3B. It was small, but it worked. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, bathroom, and a weird little hallway that connected them all. There were 5 doors in that hallway. 4 made sense. Bedroom, bathroom, a closet, and the door to the front room. The 5th one was different. It was right at the end of the hall, opposite the front room door. No handle, no knob, just a flat slab of wood, painted the same beige as the rest of the walls. I figured it was decorative, or maybe sealed shut years ago. Still, it bothered me. There was something strange about how it sat flush with the wall, too perfect, like someone had gone out of their way to hide whatever was behind it. I knocked on it once, just out of curiosity. It knocked back, only once, like it was mimicking me. I froze, pressed my ear against the door. Nothing, no sound, no movement. I told myself it was just an echo, or maybe something in the pipes. That night, I dreamed about the hallway. It was longer than it should have been, stretched out like a tunnel, and all 5 doors were open. I stood at the far end, staring down into the dark corridor, and I could hear whispering, not in English, not in any language I recognized, just soft rhythmic syllables, like a chant. When I woke up, I found that the hallway really was longer, just by a few feet. but I knew it hadn't been that long the night before, and the fifth door had changed. It had a handle now, a small black iron knob that hadn't been there before, cold to the touch. I stared at it for a long time, heart pounding, not daring to turn it. I told myself I wouldn't touch it, that I'd ignore it, and for a few days, I did, until I started hearing scratching. Late at night, just as I was falling asleep, the sound would start, faint, like fingernails gently brushing against wood, coming from inside the wall, inside the fifth door. Sometimes it would stop for hours, other times, it would go on all night. Then the whispering started. It wasn't in my dreams anymore. I heard it while I was awake, always just out of reach, like it was coming from the other side of a thick wall. I couldn't understand the words, but I felt them, heavy, old, wrong. I asked the landlord about the door. He paused, too long, and said, "That part of the building sealed off, has been for years." I asked why. He just shook his head. "Some things are better left shut," he said, and then walked away. That night, I sat in front of the fifth door and listened. The whispers were clearer now, and they knew my name. They said it over and over, like a song. "Come in, Jacob. Come see. Come be." I started having blackouts, waking up in different parts of the apartment. Once I woke up standing directly in front of the door, hand on the knob, nails cracked and bleeding, like I'd been scratching at the wood. I boarded the door shut. I pushed furniture in front of it. I even tried sealing the frame with duct tape. It didn't matter. The next night, everything was moved back to how it was. The tape peeled clean, the furniture pushed aside, and the knob, now it turned on its own. I heard it click in the middle of the night. Not open, just unlocked. That's when the dreams changed. I didn't just see the hallway anymore. I saw what was on the other side. A staircase, spiraling downward into complete darkness. Stone walls that pulsed like they were alive. The smell of something rotten and wet. And a voice, not whispering this time, speaking, loud, clear, direct. "Come home." I left the apartment the next morning, packed a single bag, and got the hell out. But it followed me. The fifth door. It's in every place I go now. Hotel rooms, friends' houses, even public restrooms. It's always there, in the corner of my eye. Just a flat slab of wood, beige, plain, until I look away. Then it grows a handle. I've tried staying awake for days. I've tried drugs, prayer, even psych wards. It doesn't matter. The fifth door always finds me, and the voice keeps getting louder. "Come home, Jacob. You've been away too long." I don't know what's behind it. I don't want to know, but I think, eventually, I'll have to open it. Not because I want to, but because it's getting harder to resist. The scratching, the whispering, the way the hallway, in my dreams, is growing longer, every night. And now, in my reflection, I can see something standing behind me. Tall, thin, with fingers too long, and a face like melting wax. It's not knocking anymore. It's waiting. And when I finally open that door, I don't think I'll come back.